All right. Well, welcome to the Peer Learning Network. Is this our fourth meeting or third meeting?
I believe it's our fourth.
Fourth. That's great. Gloria, did you have any announcements or anything to talk about before we dive in?
Let me think. Just thank you all so much for being a part of this peer learning network. I think we will have ebb and flow as we, the typical ebb and flow of any group. And as we land on topics that are more pertinent to others, they might be where, when they will join. And especially if we announce Monty's Operation Kolache Freedom for our next call. As he says in the chat, I'm sure we will have 100 people on the call. But I just want to say I appreciate you all. I know you are all passionate about the work that you do. You're passionate about your communities. And thank you for taking an hour to share with others about what you're doing and your ideas and what worked for you and maybe even what didn't work for you. So that's really all I have in a nutshell, Michelle.
All right. Well, we have a little challenge today, but I know we can figure out a way to get around it. And the challenge is that Delana Bear from Lockwood, who was going to kick off our conversation today with some questions that she's been running into while she's been working on, I guess I would call it community-based branding effort. So for Lockwood. And so the questions that we posed in the email really tapped into the questions that she has. But her son, she thought everything was super well scheduled. Her son is having surgery today to get some rods taken out of his arm. And so she cleverly scheduled that for her son to go in early, and then she'd have the whole morning to work, and then her son would get out of recovery and she'd pick him up. However, that didn't happen and she can't be here today. So we have a couple of options the way that I see it, and I want to just throw this back to you. One is, we all came expecting to talk about this, so we could talk about it. I have like a short video from Oak Ridge, Oregon that really talks about communities telling their own story and kind of growing into that a little bit that we could start with, or we could just dive in to these questions. And maybe the question that I would throw out to you, if we're going to stick with this topic, is where do you feel your community is in this journey of representing itself to the world and telling its own story and feeling like you know who you are and how you want to talk about yourself. So that's one direction we could go. But if there is something that you would rather talk about, I'm open to that. So, or I think we're all open to that. And Gloria and I had a little confab at the beginning, or at around 8 o'clock when I heard from Delana saying this isn't going to work out. So do you want to go for it? And I see Bob's joining us from Lockwood. So do you want to go for it and talk about that? Or is there something else that's really on your minds?
I just wanted to say, this is Mary from Shoto. I joined particularly for this because we have been going through branding and marketing for the last 3 to 5 years. It was a big part of our MEDA. We've gotten several grants to do it, and I have some links that I can certainly share about what we've done. So I'm happy to talk about what we've done in Shoto.
That's great. Other folks, you good with rolling with this? All right. So I'm just checking in with myself to see if we want to, do you want to start with this video, or Mary, do you want to just start and dive in?
Why don't you go to the video and then I can share what I have.
Okay, we'll do that, and then we'll use that to kick off a whole group conversation, and then we'll ask Delana to watch this, and maybe at the beginning, regardless of what our topic is next time, we can have a little bit of feedback from Delana about, hey, that really helped me, made me think about this, or thank you for all the links. that sort of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and find this.
Hey, and Michelle, while you're doing that,
Yep.
I see Bob is kind of struggling with his audio.
Uh-oh.
Bob, would you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? Doesn't look like he can.
So maybe.
Hey, hi, Bob, could you give me a thumbs up if you could hear me now? All right.
All right.
Because I know Bob will have some thoughts on this as Lockwood has dealt with branding and Lockwood's identity. So, and then I also see Cherie just put in the chat that Troy is going to have a meeting on this next Tuesday. So
That's
Michelle,
great.
I think even though we missed Elena, I think we found our topic for today.
I think we did. And now I just have to re-find the screen that I was sharing.
Oh,
Because
I know.
I think I didn't share it with sound. And
Yeah.
so here we go.
You have it all up and then
Share sound. That's not the right one. Communities. Sorry, I just had this. God dang it.
And Lori, glad you could join us today.
Lori, do you have any announcements or anything you want to talk about before we dive in?
I do not. Good morning, everybody.
You do not.
Good morning,
I was
Lori.
hoping that you would.
Oh,
Because now this is all being elusive, even though I just had it.
Well, I have, if you're looking for fill-in, Tara has had a huge announcement this week that I think will be of interest to all of our communities.
Go for it,
Do you
Tara.
want to unmute, Tara, and just tell real quick your big announcement?
Yes, so we have launched that we are an affiliate of the Utah State University Remote Work Certificate Program. So we have launched that this week after frantically getting all of our stuff together, like our registration system and all of that. So I'm just wondering, I'm just going to look how many, 1, 2, 3, I don't know, we have maybe 10 people registered. Maybe more than that. We have a good number of folks registered.
Wow, that's incredible.
That's
awesome.
great.
So I'm really excited about it because it gives folks an opportunity to learn skills for a remote job and they can stay in their rural communities. But I'm also, like, you all will appreciate this. So Extension, we are educators. We are helping people through the class itself. We are not really job search people, right? So we have this really cool partnership where the people at the job service, the Montana Job Service, are going to specialize. They're going to educate a couple of their folks on how to do a really strong remote job search. So when we're done with them in the class, the job service people are going to take them and help them find a remote job, because that's kind of a specialty. And then with our AMRE program with the University of Montana, they are going to take the folks that are interested in developing a business. So we might have like attorneys or editors or writers or, who knows what kind of people, but they might have the ability to expand their business to work with clients remotely. So then AMRE is going to work with them. So it's a cool partnership and we're excited. So thanks, Gloria, for that opportunity.
Well, it hugely impacts our rural towns because we have people who are underemployed, not employed, or have this long commute, and now they have a whole new world opening up to them.
Yeah, and I'll put it's a start. It's a pretty basic website, but I'll put the website in the chat.
Great.
It's got the basic information, no bells and whistles, but.
Perfect. Excellent. All right, let's dive in. I'm going to show, this is a 7-minute video. I think I'm going to stop at about 5 minutes in. But let's hear from Oak Ridge. Can you hear?
And all the kids now what makes rural Oregon so unique is every town has their own little story to tell. You know, our story started out years ago with the railroad and timber, but timber's not around anymore.
There was a lull and a period of, what do we do now?
Oak Ridge was a sleepy, dead town and not a lot going on.
As we're struggling, with the timber declines, we got to find something.
That's the challenge, is how do you reinvent yourself and still pay respect to your past.
We had all the players come to the same table. We had the Forest Service, we had the city, we had Travel Oregon and Travel Lane County, and local advocates come together and say, what do you want? What does Oak Ridge want? And a lot of smart people said, hey, you know what? You got something going. Run with it.
Hell yeah, I just got paid. It's time to get this started. Your friends keep enemies at bay. Forget that I was ever your whipping boy.
Right now in Oak Ridge, tourism is really important because we don't have a lot of industry. People figured out that, well, let's use the natural assets of the community. There are things that we know how to do, that we like to do, that we could share with others, and so let's invite them here to do those things.
During the Rural Tourism Studio, we developed this idea that we have to improve customer service, and we came up with the idea of We Speak. We speak biking, we speak wildflowers, what people are looking for. What are the questions tourists are asking?
The goal of the We Speak program is to train the local community in topics that they're passionate about, so then they can convey that to the tourists.
My name is Heather and I speak Oak Ridge camping.
Sticking around camping, or? My name is Trisha and I speak rivers and lakes.
I'm Richard and I speak wildflowers.
When the visitor and the trained frontline staff have an interaction and the visitor comes away excited about their stay here, that is the goal.
We invited some friends out from Eugene, and they all happened to be members of a ukulele band. And they said, why don't you have a ukulele festival? We go, what? What an odd idea. And once we got started, there was a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of energy behind it. You know, the ukulele is just like a fun, positive little instrument, something that people can pick up casually and then they start getting into it.
Music is a huge community builder, especially in this small town. I think the Ukulele Festival is doing a great job in helping to reinvigorate the economy here in Oak Ridge.
You haven't lived until you see 40 ukuleles playing Rolling Stones music.
You know, it's always fun to go to a little tiny community and find something really fabulous.
Mountain Bike Oregon to me is about community. It's about the mountain bike community and giving back to the Oak Ridge community. We got the Ride Center money, which is $400,000 to do trail development, signage, and other stuff in this area.
We basically have a plan to develop 5 major trailheads around the community, like spokes in a hub. The community becomes the trailhead, and that's sort of the Ride Center concept for us.
That we got that money shows that we're committed to it and that also others believe in what we're doing up here.
I'm going to go ahead and cut it off there. The rest of it sort of winds down. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Any thoughts about that before we turn it over to Mary to talk to us about what they've been doing in Shoto?
I just have to mention that We Speak thing, as I mentioned in the chat. I've heard economic developers say that site selectors, that do I want to move to Shoto or Anaconda? Do I want to put my business there? That they will just have people come and sit in a restaurant and ask someone, so what's it like living here? or you know, what's there to do here, and how's the schools here? And based on that random answer, it can make or break a business deal. You know, and so I love the idea of having the we speak, you know, so that if everyone who was engaged in this in a town knew, you know, talk to Bob about the water capacity issues of Lockwood, or talk to Shauna about great breweries in the region or distilleries. I just love that idea. It could avoid some negativeness.
Yeah, and that's interesting. You know, when we do, I offer a lot of courses online, and we do something about community-based branding in some of those courses. And we always talk about, you're not just talking to potential visitors, you're talking to everybody, right? You're talking to the people who live in your community. You're talking to people who might want to live in your community. You're talking to people who did live in your community. Anybody else? Any other thoughts on that? Mary, let's turn it over to you.
Okay. Yeah, my mute's off. First of all, can you send us a link to that?
Yes, I will do that.
We have had a fiddlers sort of a gathering here for a while, and they've moved around. They're now in Lincoln. But the ukulele thing reminded me of that. And we also have ukulele classes. So I thought, gee, maybe we should do now the fiddlers are gone, we'll do a ukulele festival. Anyway, I just wanted to share, we've been working on branding and marketing. And to me, the two kind of go together. And I'm certainly not an expert, but I've learned over the last really 3 to 5 years we've been working on this, how important it is to, first of all, discover kind of through exercises, branding, because we had scattershot sort of branding before. Some different themes arose and people didn't use them consistently. So we've gone through an exercise about 4 years ago. We got a grant to do a website, a more sophisticated website. We didn't really even have one. And through that, we hired Went Advertising out of Great Falls, and they did extensive branding interviews with folks. We also did some of that through the MEDA process, kind of what are we about, what are our themes, what are we proud of, what do we offer? And we distilled that down, but it still was a little amorphous, I would say. And finally, we said, you know, if we have these brands out there that Went help us develop some, but I wouldn't say it was the end all. We got a grant from the Department of Commerce to do a marketing and branding toolkit, because when you brand yourself, you have themes, you have you know, your strengths, but you also have to look at how you present yourself and do it consistently. So I guess one of my messages is once you realize how you want to present yourself, I mean, we're between Glacier and Yellowstone. We want you to stop in Shoto and enjoy what's to the west of us. There are different themes that went through our branding, but we didn't do it consistently. One business would use some fonts and some themes, and other businesses would do others. So we did an actual toolkit, which I will copy and share into the chat, that we now encourage all businesses and organizations to use, so that when you see Shoto, you see our swoosh logo, and it all looks the same. And this toolkit has various themes that we use, sort of taglines, cute little pithy sayings, but we try and limit it somewhat. So we use the same ones and it starts sticking. One is, you know, the little town close to everything. And anyway, we also have in the toolkit fonts and colors, so that if an outfitter is doing some changes to their website and they want to emphasize that they're kind of located near Shoto, they use our logo, they use our fonts, they use our websites. So that's part of the branding and marketing. And from this, we have been doing a lot more digital marketing, using our toolkit, using our taglines, using the branding exercise that we went through. We got another grant from Department of Commerce to do that, and we just finished it. And actually, although we don't have all the results, we know for birding is one thing. So events was one thing that we wanted to focus on with our branding, what we have to offer. 4th of July, threshing bee, birding, and a few other events. We realized this last time around, a lot of birders came because of the ads, but our businesses weren't quite ready to have all the birders given kind of COVID transition. So that's something we have to work on next year. So anyway, I just wanted to share, we've gone through 3 to 5 years, and once you do the branding, you have to look at how you use that branding consistently and how you present yourself and how you develop partnerships with businesses. For example, our Port Authority is now officially working with, and this didn't happen before, our Chamber of Commerce and our TBID, our Tourism Business Improvement District. And if we three cannot present ourselves the same way, then we really screw things up. We now have an official MOU with those other 2 organizations that they will use our logo, that they will use our taglines. I shouldn't say ours because it belongs to all of us. It's not just the port authorities. And so I think having that consistency, and we know other businesses have already started using the Shoto swoosh, so people can identify with that. So we still have lots to learn, but I think we've realized that consistency in how you market yourself once you've done your branding is really critical. So I'm going to put in the chat box 2 things. One is the trails map that we've done as part of more marketing, but it uses our look, our feel, and also the toolkit, which I don't think it's, anything that shouldn't be shared, but it does show you what we're doing. So I'm going to just put links to those 2 things in our in the chat box. Okay.
Thanks, Mary. I want to bring Delana into the room sort of in spirit and ask you, Mary, if you were talking to a community that's not very far along in, I think a lot of times branding is also a way to bring communities together, right, around a common story or a common way of thinking about yourself or talking about yourself. And I want to bring Delana into the room and just ask, if you're talking to a community that's kind of starting on this process, is there something that you would recommend that would help kind of home in on that, what's so special about your place question that starts that all off?
What I found is bringing in outside facilitators and having a cross section of people sit down and mull over these things, answer questions. Both Department of Commerce and WENT did this with us, and it's been now 4 to 5 years ago. But we weren't very good at just doing it ourselves. And sometimes to have someone there, not to tell us what we are, but to elicit from us what we think about ourselves, was really helpful to have someone from the outside come in and facilitate discussions on who we are and how we want to present ourselves.
Interesting. Thoughts, questions, other ideas?
Mary, I'm curious, how did you all go through, or anyone else on the call, how did you go through when you don't all agree? For example, here in Anaconda, it popped up I'm trying to get a new logo for my market, the Anaconda Community Market, and the designer put a smelter in the center, our smokestack in the center, and then had fruit and vegetables and mountains in the background. And people in Anaconda are divided on, is the smokestack part of our heritage, or can we just get rid of it and move on? I mean, how do you handle it when the community isn't united on who we are?
Well, I know WENT came back with to us with several different taglines and logos and things like that. And we had a committee that was working on it. I have to think back because this has been 3 to 4 years ago now, that looked at them, and they picked and chose. And the group we had was fairly broadly based. And so at least there was consensus within that committee or working group as to which ones we liked and which ones we didn't. So we had kind of a selection process.
See that?
Oh, the smelter really sticks out.
Okay, it's not about me. Moving on. Oh, thanks, Mary, for that link in the chat. I'll be sure to put it in our notes too. Thank you.
Say, this is Bob. Delana sends her regrets. I got on a little late, so I don't know how many people she talked to this morning. Her son is having some surgery today, so I think the questions were in, or her questions were in Gloria's email. So thank you, Michelle, for taking the lead.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe we could tap back into those questions. So, and I had to close my email to find that.
I can start.
So I think the questions were about how do you help, how do you bring that sense of history alive? How do you tap into, like in the video, that guy said, it's sort of reinventing yourself while honoring your past. And I think just having talked to Delana briefly about this in preparation for this session, it feels to me like Lockwood is a place that doesn't really have a lot of gathering places inherent in Lockwood, right? And there's not a lot of that understanding of local culture and history. So understanding what even that common story is and kind of creating that common story is a challenge. So one question was about history. And then there was another question that was really about how do you identify kind of that special thing or create a special event that can be a spark so your community even believes in itself. And I think Mary, when you're talking about bringing people in from outside to help facilitate, that's this process of your community recognizing that there's something of value there. And I feel like for Delana, that's really what she's wrestling with, is how to help Lockwood create a story about itself that A, it believes, and B, has something that appeals to people from outside of Lockwood. So any thoughts about those questions? Delana stumped us. I'm going to put in the chat a series of questions that so I've worked for a number of years, since like 2005, with what was originally a National Geographic program called geotourism. It's basically National Geographic trying to explain how its readers would travel if you thought about its readers as travelers. And so kind of combining sustainable tourism and ecotourism and heritage tourism with the idea that it's possible to have tourism, to invite people to visit us in ways that help us sustain what's important about our communities, that help us even make ourselves a better place and don't just drain away our energy and leave litter all over, that there's a way to have tourism that fits with rural communities and with the landscapes that surround our communities. So when we do this branding process, it's really simple, and it revolves around these questions about what's special about our place. What do we care most about? Where do we take people or send people when they come to visit? What's our invitation to visitors, and what's our geography? And these are really kind of straightforward questions that you may or may not be good about facilitating this for yourself. I think Mary brings up a good point that sometimes having somebody from outside holds up a mirror to your community that's hard for you to do yourselves. But these are just simple questions that we use to help communities get from, not really even understanding what their story is to understanding that, and then thinking about being able to tell it. And I'll tell you, there are some really, besides what Gloria was talking about, that you don't know who any given visitor is. So Gloria mentioned companies that'll just send somebody to, sit down in a restaurant and say, what's it like here? And if you have some kid who's like, yeah, I don't know, this is the most boring place ever, right? That's not your best foot forward, although that person might know who they're talking to. But there are so many different audiences that we're talking to, and more there's this like a trend in travel where more and more travelers want the experience of the place. They want to connect with people. They want to know that this is a real place. They want to sometimes know that how they're traveling, or the fact that they're traveling there, makes a difference to people. So this whole trend toward authentic travel makes it more and more important to equip communities, not just to have a logo. And Lori put up a resource in the box that talked about, your brand, your logo is an expression of the brand. But Mary, you talked about how tapping into that kind of common identity, and it's often captured in your taglines. And so if you have a few taglines, that helps you kind of orient yourself and tell your stories. And there are a lot of really good community-based tourism websites now that really focus on helping people tell their own stories. And so that functions as capacity building for a community and for businesses, but also a representation of your place. So to me, the idea of storytelling is really woven into the idea of marketing and branding. And I'm curious, Mary, does that ring true to you?
Phrase that again.
That the idea of storytelling, or the practice of storytelling, is really connected with communities marketing and branding themselves.
I think the storytelling came about when we did our initial sort of sit down sessions, our brainstorming sessions. I think we do. I mean, I get one example that I'm going to give as storytelling somewhat is that we're going to be working with the University of Montana and their geology, their geology, Rick Gratz, the University of Montana, and do a blog on sort of stories and history of the area that will be an aspect of our website. So I think that's more formalized storytelling. But as a community, that helped us to form our taglines. I'm not sure we utilize those stories. Well, we do somewhat, because we did a video on bringing people to Shoto. And
I was just going to say that, Mary. Yeah, you use storytelling in that video.
We do, which is similar.
I remember them.
Yep. So yes, we do use it. We did use it in that one. So yeah, so that's my addition. Yeah, we use it.
I don't know if this is a rabbit trail or not, but I think right now is an interesting time, because all of this discussion about storytelling and being able to communicate your sense of place, I mean, it really comes down to the people that are interacting with the tourists, who are our lowest paid employees with highest turnover. And now with the crazy increase in housing prices, I think, so, I mean, I just had this weird interaction. So I live in Red Lodge, which is a tourist community in South Central Montana. And I'm new here. I've been here 3 years. A year ago, or a year and a half, it was a while ago, before the pandemic, I was in the gas station getting something. And I remember somebody saying, one of the employees just like super snarky about, oh, well, this is just for the rich people, you know, downtown Red Lodge or something. And I was like, well, that just never occurred to me that was the thing. But I'm like, well, of course it is. Yes. And so I bet you that attitude is even worse now. I mean, we have professional employees that can't afford to live here, let alone people that are working at the gas station, which is where people interact. So I wonder if that's even a more urgent issue to get this kind of storytelling and focus for even the people that really interact. So just an interesting little twist in 2020 for this issue.
I'm concerned about that too, Tara. I hear about it more and more, and I won't take the time now, but I've even heard more stories. But that's why that we speak idea so appealed to me, so that we could maybe direct people specifically.
Well, and it's like, I mean, it's like focusing on a great, wonderful quality of that employee or that business owner. Like, so maybe you make $10 an hour, but you are a specialist in this area. So it's just like patting them on the back. I just think it's brilliant. So good.
I think really good point. Yep.
I think to that end, it'd be nice if there was some kind of funding that if these like frontline businesses like coffee shops and wherever people stop, libraries, gas stations, if they are participating in some sort of program like that We Speak program, if they could have access to some money to pay their employees a couple dollars more an hour to make them a little more of a professional rate. It is hard for them to keep people.
Great idea.
Years ago, Montana had the super host communities. Gloria, I bet you remember that. And it was through the Department of Commerce, and they actually came out and they helped people, you know, wait staff and that kind of thing, people working in motels and so on. And there was money available. People went to this training, and that kind of has died in the vine as far as I know. I don't think Commerce does that at all anymore and hasn't for years. It was a good program.
It was.
Because you could then, once you went through the training, you were designated a super host community.
Well, I don't want to dominate the conversation, but I just have to add, like, coming out of our Reimagining Rural program, we were made very aware of how some of us in rural places are not very welcoming to newcomers that are coming into our rural communities. However, we need them, and we need them to stay because they offset the people that are leaving and passing away. So we had actually talked about that within Extension. Maybe that's something that we can do, is kind of revive that, a program like the program that you were just talking about, Mary. So, I mean, we haven't moved on it, but it's on our radar, something that we could do. That would be very great for Extension. Like, we're everywhere, you know, we could have that as a pretty common program among our agents.
Lori put a webinar series in the chat that is a series that's all about housing in gateway communities. And I noticed that one of the sessions coming up, I'm super interested in this one, was how to kind of train short-term lodging visitors, so the people who are using short-term lodging to be good visitors in your community. I'm super interested in that. As a, you know, the other topics are a lot of topics you'd sort of expect about housing affordability and about it just looks like a really interesting series of webinars. And that one in particular stuck out for me because it was something that I hadn't really thought about. And it connects with this idea of essentially when you're talking to visitors or potential visitors, you're inviting them to visit your community, and you're kind of telling them how you want them to visit and how you want them to see you. So that extending that to saying, and once you're here, you know, we have some expectations for you, is a really interesting next step. Lori, did you have anything to add before you have to jump off?
No, I just wanted to share that, make sure that was on everybody's radar because it sounds like it's a really good series and, definitely relevant to everybody in our 3 states that we're working with for sure. And I'm looking forward to a couple of those webinars as well. That's the thing about COVID is there have been so many great opportunities to get this kind of online information from different universities and organizations. Like I've never seen this before because usually you have to travel and go do these things in person, but universities especially have been so great. And really just what's so new to me is that they're not doing this for people like them, they're doing this for people like you, which is it's I love to see that from academia and really doing that kind of outreach and to communities and helping reaching people where they are because we haven't been all that great about doing that in the past. But yep, thanks. I gotta go. So have a great weekend, everybody. Good discussion.
All right. Thanks, Lori.
Yep.
Cherie, you put a little note in the box about the Montana Aware project. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Maybe everybody knows about it and it's just me.
Yeah, so the Montana Aware project was really put together by Glacier Tourism. So during COVID, they kind of redirected the tourism funds that they would usually spend to invite visitors to Montana and specifically the Glacier area. And so they took those funds and they created big vinyl signs. They sent out masks. They had sandwich board signs. They just did a bunch of marketing, and it was Montana Aware. And it's just visit. Let's keep Montana aware, Montana safe. And then it has on it things that we would expect from visitors, like social distancing, wearing your mask, washing your hands frequently. And they sent that out to Chamber of Commerce's and different areas in the Glacier region to promote tourism in a safe way. So I think that just kind of speaks to that, having expectations of tourists and then marketing to that.
Interesting.
That's a good point, Cherie. I didn't look at it that way. I appreciated it as, how to get people to be aware of Montana's COVID safety guidelines, but I never added to that, and here's how we want you to behave when you come and visit Montana. So thank you for opening my eyes to that. I'm going to send it to some people from Arizona that are coming this summer.
There you go. It has a conversation for you that you don't have to have then.
Exactly.
I'm going to send you this website and you need to read it.
Well, and I think that it kind of said, we're still open, Montana's still open, and we're still open to visitors, but we have some expectations of those visitors so that we can stay open.
Well, not to push us ahead farther than you mean to, Michelle, but I'm wondering if you all would like to have some of our next meeting continue this, because I'm curious to see what Cherie and Shauna learned from their Troy branding session. I wonder if we could maybe get an update from them of how that went next time. Didn't you say, Cherie, you guys are having a meeting Tuesday?
Yes, so I actually have, so the community center meeting is on the 3rd, I believe. But we're having a meeting to kind of pre-plan. We have an individual coming in to help us with doing a vision exercise. We've already done a story branding exercise. So just coming up with a story that we can take out into the community to get community feedback and buy-in on our new community center project. And then we're going to be working on the vision statement this next month and really kind of finalizing that so that we can get consistent marketing on all our vision boards and all of our brochures and things like that we'll be distributing throughout the summer to get feedback on this big project.
Cool. And then maybe Delana will be able to join us, and Delana and Bob could fill us in on what progress Lockwood is making. How's that sound?
All right.
Okay. And then Mary can continue to add her expertise. Speaking of the date for our next meeting, we usually do the 4th Friday, and that is the 28th. And I just wondered how many of you will be taking a Memorial Day long weekend. Or because it's Friday at 9:30, will you still be around? Shauna will. I'm available, Cherie says. What do you think? Should we stick with Friday, May 28th? Yeah? Mary's nodding yes.
Yes.
Okay. Is that okay with you, Michelle, our fearless
works for me.
facilitator? Okay.
And I'm going to look around. I'll poke around and see if I can find some more kind of good examples of community-based storytelling, and maybe even I'll look around and see if I see any examples of, I can think of one example of a program that doesn't tie increased wages to kind of this sort of skill and capacity and perspective building, kind of the represent your community capacity for frontline workers. But I do know a program that provides a credential for going through it for certain. It's the National Association of Interpretation certified, what do they call them? Certified host program, something like that. And it's for a select kind of category of frontline folks, but you get this certification with it. And I'm going to look and see, I think part of the idea behind the certification is that you can be a higher value employee as you move through kind of even through travel related jobs and travel and tourism related jobs. So I'll look into that a little bit and see if I can learn how that works practically speaking. Does it actually kind of give the people who go through it a notch in their belt that gives them some sort of advantage for advancement? And then it'd be interesting, I'll see if I can learn some more about how Oregon adopted the We Speak program. So Travel Oregon adopted that program from Oak Ridge. Oak Ridge came up with the idea, and I love that it was so grassroots with Oak Ridge. And I still think that that's a really nice way to go about this kind of program, is really have it fed by the community, even the people who are leading the sessions, right? Who are kind of doing the certification session should be community members. But I will put in the chat actually, if I can find it really quickly, or the We Speak Oregon program came up with, similar to Mary, what you were talking about, your branding toolkit. This is the We Speak program, and they came up with kind of a toolkit, like a guide for if you want to do this program. And it does have things like templates for the buttons and that sort of thing. But to me, one of the beauties behind how Oak Ridge talks about it was their idea, and it came from inside their community. It wasn't like, we're going to go to the Montana Department of Commerce and sign up for this certification from outside of us. You know, there's a benefit to that, but I love the grassroots origin of this program. And when I've worked with other communities who have done similar things, they really tried to take that grassroots feeling and use that. So, all right, well, we did it. We made a video for Delana. Delana, sorry we missed you. Sorry you missed us, but we'll catch you next time. And thanks to you all for joining. We're gonna jump off 5 minutes early. Yay. And
All
we'll
right.
see you in a month.
Thank you all so much.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.